The Earth is teeming with life. On the land, under seas and oceans, in deserts, woodlands, wetlands, on ice-capped peaks, in tropical jungles, and even concrete jungles, life is rich and abundant. But whether it's an elephant in Africa, a tree frog in Brazil, a salmon in North America, or a high school student in Western Australia, every living creature needs water for its survival. It's as simple as that. Fresh water is more valuable than the most beautiful work of art, the richest gold mine, or all the money in the world. Fresh water is priceless. It's our most precious and vital resource. But its supply must never be taken for granted. As the world's human population increases, the pressure to find and protect good, clean drinking water supplies will also increase. Fresh water is found on the Earth's surface in rivers, lakes, streams and man-made reservoirs. But did you know that about 50 times more fresh water is found underground than all the Earth's surface water storages combined? But where does groundwater come from and how does it travel? When most people think of groundwater, they usually think of underground streams in limestone caves, but this is rarely the case. The majority of groundwater is obtained from water stored within the microscopic spaces or pores in rocks or soil, just like the water in the spaces between these marbles. Groundwater is present nearly everywhere beneath the Earth's surface, even under the desert. But the volume of supply varies depending on the rock type, depth of water, and the land use above. Most groundwater comes from rainfall. When it rains, raindrops hit the ground. Some droplets are evaporated straight away or run off to streams and rivers. The remainder slowly filters into the pores and cracks in soils and rocks to become groundwater. It continues slowly downwards until it reaches the water table. The rate and amount of groundwater infiltration depends upon the porosity and the permeability of the soil. Porosity means the ability to store water in the pores between individual grains and particles. To help us understand this process, when you think of porosity, think of a sponge. All right, what do you think will happen when we fill this 10-litre container of sand with a further 3 litres of coloured water? If you thought the sand would absorb all the coloured water without the container overflowing, you were right. Go to the top of the class. That's because the sand has pores that allow the water to be stored. However, porosity is only one part of the story. Water is not only stored underground, it is also transmitted underground. This process is called permeability. In the previous experiment, the water moved through the sand in the container because the pores in the sand were connected. This is permeability. Different types of soil have different rates of permeability. That's why gardeners in Perth are forever watering in summer. Perth soils are very sandy and easily transmit large volumes of water. Clay, on the other hand, reacts quite differently to water. Its individual grains swell up while becoming saturated, and the spaces between the particles simply close up. So clay has low permeability because it blocks the passage of groundwater. The ideal material for the accumulation of groundwater is both porous and permeable. Materials that transmit and store groundwater are called aquifers, from the Latin word meaning water-bearing. Sand, sandstone and limestone are good examples of aquifers. Granite is neither porous nor permeable, so it isn't an aquifer at all. When water droplets, like our little friend here, hit sand, they can filter into the soil. It's a bit harder when a water droplet hits sandstone or limestone, although it can still filter through. But granite is much harder and more resistant to water filtering into it. Ooh, that would have hurt. There are two types of aquifers, confined and unconfined. An aquifer with its upper boundary open to the Earth's surface is called an unconfined aquifer. The largest unconfined aquifer being utilised in Western Australia is the Gnangara Mound, just north of Perth. Here, the combination of topography, sparse vegetation and sandy soils are ideal for a large volume of rainfall to reach the water table. The saturated sands here are up to 70 metres thick and are recharged by the rainfall on the coastal plain. It is called a mound because the water table slopes away from the high central area, with groundwater flowing outwards to the ocean, rivers and lakes. The Gnangara Mound stores about 19,500 billion litres of fresh water. That's 300 times the capacity of the Canning Dam. It is without doubt the largest and most important source of water for Perth. The mound also feeds water to wetland regions, which are a home for a multitude of native animals, birds, insects and aquatic life. However, out of sight should not mean out of mind. If we are to protect and conserve this vast water supply for future generations, we must all act responsibly with its usage. And that means all of us. The other type of aquifer is a confined aquifer, which is overlain by a confining layer which is much lower in permeability. A confined aquifer simply means that the groundwater is trapped from moving up by this layer. Some people refer to this as an artesian aquifer. When a confined aquifer has its highest level exposed at the surface, rainwater can enter directly into the aquifer from what is known as the recharge area. Beneath the Perth metropolitan area, we have what's called a multi-aquifer groundwater system. Here, the deeper confined aquifers, the Leederville and Yarragadee, receive most of their recharge from water seeping slowly through the overlying aquifers. This occurs where the low permeability layers are thin or absent altogether. The weight of water in the deep aquifer, coupled with the confining effect of the layer above, causes water pressure to build up. If a bore is drilled into the confined aquifer, the groundwater pressure forces the water up the hole against the pull of gravity. This is called a confined or artesian bore. In some places, usually at the bottom of a valley, groundwater can flow above ground level from the confined aquifer. Groundwater is always moving, and it varies in depth and volume according to the seasons. In winter, when there is usually more rain, the water table is higher than it is in the summer when rainfall is less. The water table represents the level at which the unsaturated zone meets the saturated zone. But just as our landscape is never perfectly flat, nor is the water table. Groundwater moves horizontally at rates of about 10 to 100 metres per year, depending on permeability. Remember that word? If we follow the groundwater moving from the Gnangara Mound, we find that it usually discharges into the sea or rivers. However, the entire journey from when water enters the Gnangara Mound aquifer until the groundwater finally discharges can take 1,000 years or more. So, let's recap some of the main points. Groundwater is obtained from water stored within pores in rock or soil. Porosity means the ability to store water in pores between individual grains and particles. Permeability means the capacity to transmit water that is held in pores. Materials that transmit and store groundwater are called aquifers. An unconfined aquifer has its upper boundary open to the Earth's surface. A confined aquifer is one that is overlain by a layer of material of low permeability. The water table is the level at which the unsaturated zone meets the saturated zone. An area that allows water to enter an aquifer is a recharge area, and the discharge area is the area at which water exits the groundwater system. To put groundwater in perspective, we could live without motor vehicles, television, telephones, microwaves and chocolate. Chocolate. Only if we had to. But we can't live without clean, fresh water. There is simply no substitute. The more we understand about groundwater, the better chance we have for protecting this precious resource. By ensuring its protection, we are a long way towards ensuring our own survival. I feel like a nice glass of water after all that.